Welcome to Instant Answers, presented by the Instant Speed Podcast. This is a new series of videos where I am going to break down some of the more, important questions that you might have concerning the game we all love. That would be Flesh and Blood. And this week's episode is going to be about Majestic cards. What are the Majestic cards that are not just great, but are going to hold their value and that maybe you should be investing in? Because a lot of these cards and a lot of the concerns that we're getting from the people out there within the Flesh and Blood community are that, hey, these cards are expensive, and if I want to upgrade my deck, I want to make sure that the cards that I'm putting down some dough on are going to hold their weight through and through. So here are 5 cards that you can be confident are going to be good for a long time. At number 5, we're going to go with Nourishing Emptiness. Now, Nourishing Emptiness is not necessarily a very expensive card for you to have, but it's a very useful card, very niche in what it does. It is a 6 attack, 3 defense, 2 cost red pitch that comes out of the Monarch expansion. So what does Nourishing Emptiness do? Well, if you've got no attack actions in your graveyard, it comes in with Dominate, and on hit, it allows you to have +1 intellect. Not many cards out there allow you to expand the grip that you're holding of cards in the next turn. So having 5 cards really puts you ahead of the game. It's a card that you can draw potentially early on and attack with, but it also has implications for cards, or decks rather, and archetypes that don't necessarily play a lot of attack actions. Are you playing Dorinthia, let's say? How about Kano? Having a card like this is pretty important, not to mention when it comes to having tech against, let's say, Prism. Seems to be popular. Having a 6 attack cost, 6 attack card in hand that you can go ahead and pop some of those phantasmals, those cards that like to just explode upon defense with a 6 attack card. This is a good one to have in your arsenal. It's a great sideboard card, something that will always be useful, and doesn't seem to be really a card that people are not necessarily, sort of thinking otherwise on. At number 4, we have the Gorganium Tome, the card that really doesn't do much. I mean, from a statistics perspective, the cards and the digits on it mean nothing. There's no pitch, there's no cost, there's no attack, there's no defense. What is it really? Well, it's a non-attack action that you drop on the board that, well, in reality, just draws you a card. It just recycles itself. Now, it does have the penalty of kind of a game of chicken against your opponent. If you've got Gorganium Tome, and so does your opponent, you don't want to play it first, because your opponent will then basically draw 2. However, when does that really happen? Well, often enough, I suppose, as this card has been repopularized, or rather just kind of put into, overdrive with the Briar list, but with all the Briar changes and some of the bans that are coming through, Gorganium Tome still does actually have a lot of value. It's a card that I feel will certainly maintain its usefulness and its, carry weight and value over time. Gorganium Tome is a neutral card that will go ahead and fit into a lot of cards that really want to rely not only on card draw, but on non-attack actions to supplement longer and more prolific attack patterns and attack actions on the combat chain. You want to, just sort of spread out those attacks, get those non-actions going. That is the way to go. Gorganium Tome is a card that is not just going to hold its value, but hold its utility as well. At number 3 is a card that we have seen really have a place in many different deck styles. Typically, we've seen this card have major implications on chain, but Art of War is a very, very big card to play when you're trying to go wide and fix some of those really bad draws that you have. Improve your attacks and your defense. How about draw a card as well? Why not? This card can do many things, and it comes in at instant speed. So after your opponent blocks, perhaps you drop it in, pump up that attack, on-hit effects go through, you're feeling great. Art of War has implications not just on current decks, but it will certainly factor into future decks as well. This is a combat trick that you can certainly rely on, not just to slot into many different decks that you're going to be playing and building, frankly, which is part of why this whole top 5 list exists, to show you cards that are not just going to hold monetary value, but you'll be able to invest in them for various decks. And Art of War is very much a card that you can rely on to be useful across many different archetypes. At number 2 is Command and Conquer from Arcane Rising. This set had a lot of big cards in it, much like Art of War prior to this in this list, but Command and Conquer has such utility because it's such a threatening card. Command and Conquer attacks for 6, defends for 3, sure, no problem, but the beauty of this card is what it does in terms of threatening your opponent's arsenal. On hit, your opponent's going to have to blow up their arsenal, toss it away. And the beauty of this is that a lot of times players are hiding defense reactions in their arsenal. But this card means that your opponent cannot play defense reactions. So more often than not, this card is peeling away 2 cards out of your opponent's hand if they value their arsenal. Otherwise, it's adios, goodbye. You're getting a card out of them. In the way that a 5-card hand, that arsenal slot is so critical to momentum and continuing pressure, Command and Conquer as a threatening piece. It's kind of like the boogeyman in most of these gameplay scenarios. Command and Conquer is a card that is possibly gonna get reprinted, but this is a card that I always say is should be on everyone's list to collect and pick up. It goes in almost every deck you're ever gonna play. It'll always be valuable, it'll always be important, and it'll always be threatening. Command and Conquer is your number 2 on this list. At number 1, I don't think there's any surprise here, frankly. It's Enlighten Strike. How are you going to say no to a card that costs 0? Well, it costs 0. You're cycling a card to the bottom of your deck. You're bottoming out a card in order to get any of the effects. Go again, card draw, +2 attack. It does everything, and it blocks for 3. Base 5 attack. So, hey, you want to attack for +2 and go for 7? Get tall, baby. No problem. You want to go again? Go again. How about card draw? No problem. You want to dunk a card at the bottom of your deck, but peel off the top, maybe load it up in your arsenal and have a better turn next time? No problem. You can do that as well. This card is so versatile. It is so good. The value of this card has kind of fluctuated. It has gone as high as about $100 all the way down to about 40 or so, but it has always maintained its utility and its value. This is a card that might get reprinted, sure, no problem, but if you're looking at improving your card collection without the fear of necessarily picking up cards that are going to lose value over time or utility, Enlighten Strike, I feel, will always be good. This is a card that can fit into every single deck you play because it does so much. Enlighten Strike is your number 1, and I don't think that there's ever going to be any challenge to this particular card. Do you have a question or a list you'd like to see discussed or explored on Instant Answers? Well, you can go ahead and send it over here to Instant Speed Pod on Twitter, or check me out at Watch Flake on Twitter as well, and also check out the Instant Speed Podcast. It is on 983 Media on YouTube. Check us out, friends.